Leave the plane now! You're a threat for others!
He paid $12,000 for a first-class seat. Minutes before takeoff, airport police dragged him off the plane in handcuffs. His crime? Existing while black. One flight attendant's lie cost him a billion-dollar deal and sparked a war that would shake the aviation industry to its core. This is the story they never wanted you to see. Subscribe now. Every click fights injustice. Your support ensures stories like this never stay buried. Terminal A pulsed with the restless energy of journeys beginning and ending. Under the unforgiving glare of pre-dawn lights, a river of humanity flowed towards gates promising escape or obligation. Amidst the tide of rumpled suits and weary travelers, one man moved with a distinct, quiet authority. Elias Vance, 45 years old, founder and CEO of Quantum Horizon, a titan in next-generation renewable energy storage. His company wasn't just successful, it was revolutionary, valued north of $200 million. Today's destination? Dubai, a summit where sovereign wealth funds eagerly awaited his presentation on the Atlas Core, a battery technology poised to reshape global energy grids. A deal that promised to catapult him into the billionaire stratosphere. Success wasn't just his achievement, it was his armor. It showed in the impeccable drape of his bespoke charcoal suit, the quiet gleam of a premium Swiss chronograph on his wrist, the effortless confidence radiating from his posture. He navigated the gleaming corridors of Terminal A, a black man moving through a world designed by and for a different legacy, a self-made king in a realm built on old money dynasties. He was the anomaly, the undeniable proof that the rulebook had been rewritten. Boarding for Global Airways Flight 77, first class, was a smooth, hushed affair. Elias presented his digital boarding pass for Seat 1A, the coveted apex position on the upper deck of the massive Skyliner jet. He exchanged a brief, professional nod with the senior cabin manager, a man radiating calm competence. Stepping into the hushed sanctuary of the first-class cabin felt like entering another world. Plush, private suites cocooned in muted tones, polished surfaces reflecting soft lighting, the faint, clean scent of leather and anticipation. Settling into the expansive embrace of Seat 1A, Elias felt the familiar thrum of controlled excitement. He powered up his slim tablet, the Dubai proposal glowing brightly, intricate schematics, complex financial models, the elegant dance of billions hinging on his presentation. This flight wasn't mere transit. It was the final runway before his defining leap. Then she entered. Flight attendant, mid-50s. Her uniform was starched to perfection, her silver-streaked hair pulled back in a severe knot. Her posture was rigid, almost militaristic. Her eyes, a pale, washed-out blue, swept the cabin with the efficiency of a security scan. They landed on Elias. Not a glance, an assessment. Her gaze traveled deliberately from his face, down the expensive lines of his suit, lingering for a fraction too long on the sophisticated watch, then back up to meet his eyes. A subtle shift occurred in her expression. Not confusion, a hardening. A flicker of incredulity, perhaps even distaste, quickly masked by professional blankness. Elias offered the standard, polite passenger smile, the kind exchanged countless times in premium cabins worldwide. Her lips tightened, thinning into a line devoid of warmth. She approached. Sir, her voice was crisp, clipped, devoid of the practiced warmth she'd offered moments earlier to the elderly white gentleman settling into Seat 1B across the aisle. May I verify your boarding pass, please? It wasn't a request. It carried the weight of an interrogation. Elias, mildly surprised but obliging, swiped his phone screen, enlarging the digital pass, clearly displaying 1A, Elias Vance. Certainly. Seat 1A, Elias Vance. The attendant leaned in slightly, peering intently at the phone screen, then directly at Elias. Her gaze felt invasive, probing. This is the Global Airways first-class cabin, sir. Are you absolutely certain this is your assigned seat? The emphasis on your was deliberate, a subtle but unmistakable blade drawn. A cold, sharp prickle traced Elias's spine. He kept his voice low, deep, resonating calm. Completely certain. I booked and paid for it directly. Confirmation number ending 882K. Would you like to see the full email receipt or the credit card statement? He gestured towards his briefcase. The attendant straightened, her chin lifting almost imperceptibly. She didn't look at the phone again. That won't be necessary at this time. It's just highly irregular. She let the loaded phrase hang in the quiet air of the cabin. Please remain seated. She turned with sharp efficiency and disappeared towards the forward galley. Elias exhaled slowly, the pristine focus he'd cultivated moments ago, now fractured. The elderly gentleman across the aisle caught his eye, offering a brief, sympathetic, and slightly embarrassed grimace. The seeds of profound unease, thick with implication, were sown. 5 tense minutes crawled by. The massive cabin door hissed shut with finality. The low, powerful thrum of the Skyliner's engines intensified, vibrating through the deck. Then she returned, not alone, flanked by 2 airport security officers, their expressions stern, hands resting near their equipment belts. The senior cabin manager trailed behind, his face a mask of professional concern that couldn't entirely hide his visible confusion. The attendant pointed directly at Elias, her finger an unwavering accusatory lance. Officers, this passenger is refusing to comply with crew safety instructions. He became verbally aggressive when I attempted to verify his presence in this cabin. I feel unsafe proceeding with him on board this aircraft. The lie was delivered with chilling conviction, absolute in its falsehood. Audible gasps rippled through the handful of first-class passengers, now fully attentive, their sanctuary breached. Elias rose smoothly, his 6 feet 3 inches frame imposing yet deliberately controlled. That is categorically untrue, officers. I have complied fully with every request. I presented my boarding pass. I offered further documentation. I have not raised my voice, nor have I been anything other than polite and cooperative. He turned his gaze to the senior cabin manager. You witnessed the initial interaction. Was there any hint of aggression? The manager shifted uncomfortably, avoiding Elias's direct gaze. Sir, I wasn't present for the entirety of the exchange. The attendant cut in sharply, her voice rising slightly, laced with manufactured urgency. He's being confrontational right now. He's attempting to intimidate me. I must insist he is removed immediately for the safety of this flight and its passengers. The officers stepped forward decisively, their posture shifting from observation to active intervention. Sir, the taller officer stated, his voice firm, leaving no room for negotiation. You need to come with us. Now, voluntarily. This is a profound mistake, Elias stated, his voice tight with the effort of controlling the fury simmering beneath. I have a critical international business summit. I paid a substantial premium for this seat. Check the manifest. Verify my identity. He moved his hand slowly towards his inside jacket pocket, perhaps for his wallet containing his ID, perhaps just a gesture of reason. Hands where I can see them, the second officer barked, his hand instinctively moving towards his holster. The escalation was lightning fast, brutal, disproportionate. I'm reaching slowly for my identification, Elias clarified, freezing his movement, his eyes locked on the officers. The injustice was a physical blow, a sucker punch to his core. The senior cabin manager looked away, his posture one of helpless retreat. The attendant seized the charged moment. See, non compliance. He's refusing direct orders. Get him off this aircraft immediately. The taller officer grasped Elias's upper arm firmly. You're causing a disturbance. You're coming with us. Now, resistance was futile. It was dangerous. Elias knew this. The optics were catastrophic, engineered to appear damning. Passengers fumbled for phones. Camera flashes ignited in the dim cabin like tiny, accusing stars. The sheer indignity was suffocating. His expensive chronograph scraped harshly against a polished metal seat buckle as he was turned. The sound, a jarring metallic screech, echoed the profound violation of his dignity, his rightful place, his very presence. They marched him down the lengthy aisle of the colossal Skyliner, past rows of wide-eyed economy passengers, their expressions a kaleidoscope of shock, morbid curiosity, and for some, an uncomfortable, unsettling recognition. The gulf between the plush, hushed sanctuary of first class and the harsh, fluorescent glare of the jet bridge felt like descending into a different, hostile reality. Rain lashed the exposed bridge, wind howling, mirroring the tempest raging inside Elias. They didn't just escort him, they propelled him with unnecessary force. A final, humiliating shove sent him stumbling out onto the rain-slicked tarmac apron. His briefcase, containing the physical embodiment of his Dubai ambition, the Atlas Core presentation, remained abandoned on the jet bridge floor. He turned, rainwater plastering his short hair to his scalp, streaming down his face, blurring his vision. Through the downpour and the small, thick window of the closing aircraft door, he saw her, the attendant, standing just inside, watching. Not concern, not regret. A look of grim, unsettling satisfaction tightened her features. She lifted a small radio handset to her lips, reporting her success. Then the massive, heavy aircraft door hissed shut with devastating finality, sealing him out. The engines roared to a deafening, visceral crescendo, a physical vibration shaking the ground beneath his feet. Flight 77 began to taxi away, carrying his seat, his deal, his unassailable sense of control into the roiling, stormy sky. Elias Vance, the man who had built an empire from a single brilliant idea and relentless drive, stood utterly alone on the rain-swept tarmac. Not a passenger, not a CEO, just a black man forcibly removed. The why burned like acid in his throat. But in the chilling rain, amidst the ashes of profound humiliation, a different fire ignited. Cold, precise, unyielding. This wasn't over. This was merely the opening gambit in a war she had foolishly initiated. The battleground wouldn't be the skies. It would be the courtroom. And Elias Vance, forged in the fires of building the impossible, had never lost a war. The reckoning had just been scheduled. Elias Vance stood like a statue carved from shock and rain. The downpour plastered his expensive suit to his skin, transforming it into a cold, heavy shroud. The receding taillights of Flight 77 blurred into crimson smears through the torrent, carrying his Dubai destiny, his meticulously crafted Atlas Core presentation, and the fragile illusion of belonging into the storm. The roar of the engines wasn't just sound. It was a physical assault, vibrating up through the rain-slicked tarmac into his bones, a brutal, final punctuation mark on his expulsion. The vast expanse of the airfield offered no shelter, only the biting wind and the suffocating isolation. The fortress of success he'd spent decades building felt like sand dissolving beneath his feet. The security officers offered no apology, no explanation. The drive to the airport precinct was a blur of gray smeared across rain-streaked windows, the rhythmic thud of windshield wipers a mocking counterpoint to the frantic hammering in his chest. Processing was a descent into surreal, dehumanizing ritual. The harsh fluorescent lights of the holding area, the cold metal of the fingerprint scanner, the stark, blinding flash of the mugshot camera capturing the raw shock still etched onto his face, rainwater tracing paths through his close-cropped hair, the profound disbelief hollowing his eyes. The charge sheet, disorderly conduct, interference with flight crew operations. Words that landed like physical blows, absurd labels for the quiet dignity he'd maintained. He invoked his right to silence, and his lawyer, Marcus Reed, his corporate counsel and closest confidant for nearly 20 years. The weight in the bare, freezing holding cell stretched into an agonizing eternity, echoing only with the scrape of his watch against the seat buckle, the hissed finality of the aircraft door, and Brenda Walsh's accusatory finger pointing like a dagger. Marcus arrived like a force of nature, impeccably tailored despite the downpour, his sharp eyes absorbing the scene, the charged sheet, Elias's state, with a single, furious sweep. Bail was processed with cold efficiency, a transaction that felt obscene. The drive back to Elias's penthouse overlooking the city was thick with a heavy, charged silence. Elias stared out at the gray, weeping metropolis, a skyline he'd helped shape, now feeling alien and hostile. The penthouse, usually a sanctuary of sleek minimalism and breathtaking views, felt cavernous, cold, and filled with invisible accusation. The abandoned briefcase, the symbol of his stolen future, haunted the space. Then, the digital deluge hit. As Elias stood under a scalding shower, trying to scour the tarmac grime and the psychic filth of humiliation from his skin, Marcus's phone erupted. It began with a grainy, vertically shot video, posted anonymously. The shaky footage, likely from an economy cabin phone, showed Elias's tall frame surrounded by security, Brenda Walsh pointing dramatically, the senior cabin manager looking helpless. The caption was incendiary. Hashtag first-class racism. CEO dragged off flight after FA meltdown. Hashtag flying while black. Hashtag Elias Vance. Hashtag global airways scandal. It detonated across social media. Within an hour, major news aggregators had it. Renewable Titan forcibly removed from flight. Racial profiling at cruising altitude. News networks scrambled. Twitter became a war zone. Hashtags exploded globally. Hashtag justice for Elias. Hashtag global airways exposed. Hashtag seat 1A. Support poured in, outrage from the black community, allies, stunned business leaders. But the underbelly of the internet convulsed too. Trolls swarmed. Entitled much? Probably caused a scene. Flight attendants deal with trouble. They know. If he was that rich, why didn't he just buy the airline? The narrative war had begun, and Elias Vance was no longer just a man. He was a public spectacle, a symbol, a target. The professional fallout was immediate and devastating. An encrypted message arrived from the Dubai Sovereign Fund liaison. Deeply disturbed by the reports surrounding your travel. Given the circumstances and potential reputational complexities, we must postpone discussions regarding the Atlas Core indefinitely. We require absolute clarity before proceeding. Billions. Years of work. Poof. Gone. Board members at Quantum Horizon called Marcus, their voices laced with concern, thinly veiling panic. Stock tickers flickered, Quantum Horizon's symbol, QHH, plummeting 7.5% in pre-market trading. Financial news channels dissected the Vance incident and its market implications. Reporters materialized like vultures outside his building. Elias watched the financial carnage unfold on his terminal. The plummeting numbers a cold, numerical indictment of the damage inflicted by one woman's prejudice and a corporation's swift, unquestioning compliance. His empire, built on innovation and integrity, was under siege because he dared to occupy seat 1A while black. Marcus paced the expansive living room, a tightly coiled spring of controlled fury. This isn't about one flight, Elias. This isn't even just about you. This is systemic. This is about branding you, a successful, law-abiding, paying customer, a threat solely because of the color of your skin in a space you paid a small fortune to occupy. We don't just sue for damages. We go for annihilation. We dismantle the system that empowered her. Elias stood at the panoramic window, the city lights below blurred by the relentless rain and the heat of his own simmering rage. The initial shock was receding, burned away by a chilling, laser-focused fury. The relentless drive that had propelled him from nothing was now channeled into a single, white-hot purpose. Annihilation, he repeated, the word avow whispered with terrifying calm. But Marcus, a courtroom isn't built on rage. It's built on proof. We need irrefutable evidence. We need witnesses. We need her history. We need to expose the lie, layer by rotten layer. Marcus nodded, a predator's glint sharpening his gaze. He pulled out a sleek, encrypted satellite phone, dialing a number known only to a select few in the highest echelons of crisis management. Oignon, Marcus Reed. We have a DEFCON 1 scenario. Elias Vance. Global Airways Flight 77 out of Terminal A this morning. The flight attendant is Brenda Walsh. I need a full-spectrum excavation. Everything. Her entire Global Airways employment file. Evaluations, commendations, reprimands, passenger complaints, everything. Scour every corner of the internet. Social media, forums, obscure blogs, archived news, for any mention of her, any pattern of behavior, any previous incident, no matter how minor, involving passengers of color or perceived overreach. I need the passenger manifest cross-reference for any potential allies or neutral witnesses. Security footage, gate area, jet bridge, the damn galley, if it exists. And crucially, Anya, find me passengers. Anyone who saw what happened in first class before the security arrived. Offer absolute confidentiality. Offer significant financial incentives, if necessary. This woman, Marcus's voice dropped to an icy whisper, doesn't just lose her job. She gets buried under the weight of her own prejudice. And Global Airways? They own this. They enabled it. Anya Petrova wasn't an investigator. She was a digital specter. Former intelligence community, rumored to have capabilities that blurred legal lines. Her fees were astronomical. Her results were legendary. She operated in the deepest shadows, uncovering truths entities paid fortunes to hide. Marcus had engaged her once before during a vicious corporate espionage battle. Now, her formidable skills were weaponized for a different kind of justice. The next 48 hours were a purgatory of suspended animation for Elias. Focusing on Quantum Horizons operations was impossible. The Dubai deal was radioactive ash. The board's anxiety vibrated through every call. He avoided the news, the toxic swamp of social media. He existed in a bubble of cold fury and strategic calculation. He reviewed the initial draft of the lawsuit Marcus prepared, a blistering, comprehensive legal broadside. It named Brenda Walsh and Global Airways, alleging racial discrimination under federal and state civil rights laws, defamation, both slander on the plane and libel via the incident report, false imprisonment, intentional infliction of emotional distress, negligent training and supervision, and breach of contract. The preliminary damages figure was staggering. $75 million. It felt abstract, a number. The humiliation, the crushing loss of the Dubai opportunity, the violation of his person and his rights. Those were concrete, burning realities that no sum could truly erase. Then, Anya Petrova arrived. She didn't come to the penthouse. They met in Marcus's high-security, soundproofed office downtown. She entered without fanfare, a woman of indeterminate age with eyes like chips of Arctic ice and an aura of unnerving calm. She carried a single, slim, encrypted tablet. Without pleasantries, she placed it on the polished table. "Mr. Vance, Mr. Reed, Brenda Walsh," she stated, her voice cool and precise. "She has a history, and it's worse than you imagined." She tapped the screen. This is just the beginning. The war room was now active. The counterattack had truly begun. The sterile chill of Marcus Reed's high-security office couldn't compete with the glacial aura emanating from Anya Petrova. Her presence was like a physical pressure drop. Elias Vance sat opposite her, the controlled fury of the past days hardening into diamond-sharp focus. The initial shock had crystallized. Now, only the cold calculus of battle remained. Marcus leaned forward, his usual urbane demeanor replaced by intense anticipation. Anya activated the encrypted tablet. "Brenda Walsh," she stated, her voice devoid of inflection, yet carrying immense weight. 23 years with Global Airways. Commendations for exceptional service, primarily on routes serving predominantly affluent, white demographics. Her finger tapped the screen, bringing up dense text. But the pattern emerges elsewhere. Passenger complaints. 7 formal complaints filed over the past decade, all dismissed internally by Global Airways. all filed by passengers of color, all alleging unwarranted scrutiny, hostile questioning, feeling targeted. She swiped, revealing redacted complaint summaries. A black doctor questioned aggressively about his upgrade to business class. A South Asian family with young children accused of disruptive behavior without cause. A Nigerian businessman subjected to repeated random baggage checks after boarding. The language used in her internal incident reports is telling, Anya continued. Phrases like appeared suspicious, seemed out of place, exhibited entitled attitude, consistently applied to non-white passengers occupying premium seats. Elias felt a familiar, icy rage. It wasn't just him. It was a pattern, enabled, ignored, dismissed. Every time, without exception, Anya confirmed. Global Airways' internal review process appears designed for efficiency, not justice. Minor settlements offered under strict confidentiality, complaints expunged from her official record. She learned there are no consequences. She brought up social media scans, obscure travel forums, years-old comments. User handles traced back to her personal devices. Comments beneath articles about airline discrimination. Some people just don't know their place. First class isn't a right for everyone. Security comes first, feelings second. The digital footprint of prejudice, meticulously hidden in plain sight. The passenger manifest, Marcus prompted. Working on verifications, Anya replied. But we have one solid lead. Seat 4C, Arthur Henderson, retired federal judge. White. He witnessed the entire initial interaction from boarding until security arrived. He provided a preliminary, anonymous statement to a news outlet expressing grave concern about the conduct he observed. He's willing to speak to us. He's disgusted. He saw our live form in real time. Hope, cold and sharp, pierced Elias's resolve. A credible, unimpeachable witness. The security footage? Global Airways is stonewalling, Anya said flatly. Gate area footage is unavailable due to a technical glitch. Jet bridge footage is part of an ongoing internal investigation and cannot be released. Predictable. But a ghost of a predatory smile touched her lips. We have the cockpit voice recorder. Marcus's head snapped up. You access the CVR? Legally? No. Anya admitted without a flicker. But its transcript exists within Global Airways' internal safety audit system. A system with vulnerabilities. The relevant segment is brief, but crucial. She read aloud, her voice mimicking the clipped tones of aviation communication. Asterisk senior cabin manager to flight deck. Minor disturbance first class. Attendant Walsh requesting security for non-compliant passenger in 1A. Pause. Asterisk first officer. Copy. Non-compliance. Asterisk senior cabin manager. Verifying documentation. Passenger presenting pass. Attendant. Uncomfortable. Requesting security assist. Asterisk captain. Understood. Proceed. Elias leaned back. She lied to her own crew from the start. The senior cabin manager. He sounded unsure. He didn't back her story. He was hesitant. Anya agreed. He reported what she told him, not what he saw. He failed to intervene. His weakness enabled her. And the passenger video? Elias asked, the image of that grainy, damning footage burning in his mind. Original source identified. A college student in economy. Terrified of retaliation. Anonymity guaranteed, plus a significant incentive, secured her cooperation and the raw, unedited file. It captures the entire sequence. Your calm presentation of the pass, Walsh's hostility, her departure, her return with security, her false accusation, your controlled response, the escalation, the removal. It's undeniable. Marcus steepled his fingers. We have her history. We have a pattern. We have the lying complaint. We have the lying CVR transcript. We have the senior cabin manager's failure. We have Henderson. We have the video. Global Airways' negligence is systemic. Their internal culture fostered this. They protected a racist employee because it was easier than confronting the rot. He looked at Elias. We bury them. The lawsuit was filed the next morning. Not a quiet legal document, but a detonation. Marcus orchestrated its release to the media simultaneously with its delivery to the court and global airways. Headline screamed, Vance sues for $75 million. Airline accused of racism. Negligence in humiliating removal. The complaint was a forensic dissection. Walsh's history, the dismissed complaints, the enabling corporate culture, the false report, the illegal detention, the devastating financial losses, the profound emotional trauma. Global Airways stock plummeted another 12%. The discovery phase was trench warfare. Global Airways' high-priced legal team, led by the notoriously ruthless Diana Croft, fought every request, delayed every deposition, objected to every line of questioning. They painted Elias as hypersensitive, prone to misunderstanding, implying his reaction justified Walsh's fear. They tried to bury Walsh's complaint history, claiming irrelevance. They dismissed the anonymous forum posts as unverifiable. They argued the CVR transcript was inadmissible. They painted Henderson as a confused old man. They subpoenaed Elias's entire business history, trying to find dirt, trying to prove the Dubai deal was speculative. It was brutal, cynical, and designed to exhaust and discredit. Then came Walsh's deposition, held in Marcus's office, recorded. She arrived flanked by her union rep and a stone-faced lawyer from Global Airways. She wore a mask of brutal professionalism. Diana Croft prepped her aggressively. Walsh stuck rigidly to her script. Elias was aggressive, non-compliant, made her feel deeply unsafe. She denied any racial motivation. She claimed she simply didn't recognize him in the seat and was performing her duty. She dismissed the past complaints as disgruntled passengers and denied making the online comments. Her performance was chilling in its calculated dishonesty. Marcus, methodical as a surgeon, presented the complaint summaries. She claimed not to recall specifics. He presented the forum comments, traced to her IP address. She denied posting them. He played the CVR audio snippet. She claimed the senior cabin manager misunderstood her. Her facade remained, but cracks appeared, a slight tremor in her hands, a flicker of panic in her eyes when confronted with her own digital footprints. Next was the senior cabin manager, Robert Davies. Nervous, evasive. He confirmed Walsh summoned security, but claimed he didn't witness the initial exchange clearly. He admitted reporting her claim of noncompliance, not his own observation. Under Marcus's relentless questioning, his story unraveled. He admitted he saw Elias present his boarding pass. He admitted Elias was calm. He admitted Walsh seemed unduly agitated. He admitted he didn't challenge her request for security. He was a portrait of moral cowardice, sacrificing truth for an easy life. Global Airways lawyers visibly winced. Finally, Arthur Henderson, the retired federal judge, white-haired, impeccably dressed, radiating quiet authority. His testimony was devastatingly clear. He described boarding. He described Elias taking seat 1A. He described Walsh's approach. Her demeanor shifted palpably when she saw Mr. Vance. Her tone became cold, accusatory. He described Elias presenting his phone. Mr. Vance was calm, polite, definitive. He described Walsh's irregular comment. It was a loaded word, implying he didn't belong. He described her departure. She left abruptly, visibly. Angry, not confused. He described her return with security. She pointed at Mr. Vance like he was a criminal and made her false accusation with absolute conviction. Mr. Vance's response was measured and factual. There was no aggression. None. What I witnessed, he concluded, fixing the room with a steely gaze honed on the bench, was a flight attendant manufacturing a crisis based on prejudice, and an airline security apparatus that acted on her word without question, violating the rights of an innocent man. Diana Croft's cross-examination was feeble against his unimpeachable credibility. The courtroom was packed on the first day of trial. Global Airways CEO sat grim-faced. Brenda Walsh, smaller, paler than before, avoided looking at Elias. Diana Croft opened with bluster, painting Elias as a wealthy man trying to monetize a minor misunderstanding, attacking Henderson's memory, dismissing the past complaints as irrelevant. Marcus Reed stood. He didn't shout. He spoke with quiet, devastating precision. He walked the jury through Elias's life, the rise from nothing, the empire built on merit. He detailed the importance of the Dubai summit. Then, he recreated Flight 77. He showed the jury seat 1A. He showed Elias's confirmation. He introduced Walsh's history, the complaints, the forum posts, establishing the pattern. He played the CVR transcript, highlighting the lie fed to the flight deck. He called Robert Davies, whose testimony on the stand was even shakier, confirming his failure. He called Arthur Henderson, whose testimony resonated with quiet, undeniable truth. Then, Marcus approached the bench. "Your Honor, the plaintiff would like to introduce Exhibit 42. Diana Croft objected vehemently, citing chain of custody, authenticity. The judge overruled. A large screen flickered on. Marcus addressed the jury. "What you are about to see is raw, unedited footage recorded by a passenger seated in economy class on Flight 77 on the morning in question. It shows the truth." The grainy, slightly shaky video filled the screen. There was Elias in seat 1A. There was Walsh's approach, her stiff posture. The camera zoomed shakily, capturing the disdain on her face as Elias showed his phone. They saw her lips move. Though no audio, the body language screamed hostility. They saw her abrupt departure. They saw her return with security. They saw her finger jab, her mouth forming the words refusing to comply, aggressive, unsafe. They saw Elias rise, calm, speaking clearly. They saw him slowly move his hand toward his jacket. They saw the security officer bark, "Hands," hand going to his holster. They saw the swift, unnecessary grab of Elias's arm. They saw the procession down the aisle, the humiliation, the final shove onto the jet bridge. They saw the door close. The silence in the courtroom was absolute, thick with shock. Jurors stared, mouths slightly open. One shook her head slowly. Another clenched his jaw. Brenda Walsh had shrunk in her seat, her face ashen, her eyes wide with terror. Diana Croft looked like she'd been punched. The CEO of Global Airways closed his eyes. Marcus let the silence stretch. Then he turned, not to the jury, but directly to Brenda Walsh. "Ms. Walsh," his voice cut through the stillness. "That video shows you lying. To the officers, to your crew, to this court, doesn't it?" Walsh opened her mouth, but no sound came out. She looked frantically at her lawyer, then at Diana Croft. The lie, captured on film, was now undeniable. The mask was gone. The courtroom held its breath. The reckoning was no longer theoretical. It was unfolding in real time, etched onto the horrified face of the woman who started it all. The battle wasn't won, but the tide had turned irrevocably. The jury had seen the truth, raw and unfiltered. And Elias Vance, sitting perfectly still, felt the first ember of vindication ignite, cutting through the cold fury that had sustained him. The path to justice, finally, felt tangible. The courtroom air crackled long after the video ended. Brenda Walsh's ashen face, frozen in the harsh glare of her own lie exposed, became the silent, damning punctuation to Marcus Reed's case. Diana Croft's closing arguments were a desperate rearguard action, a flimsy tapestry of misinterpreted procedures, subjective perceptions of threat, and attempts to minimize the systemic failures Marcus had meticulously laid bare. She painted Elias as exploiting the situation, but her words rang hollow against the echoing silence of that damning footage. Marcus's closing was a masterclass in controlled outrage. He didn't need theatrics. He simply walked the jury back through the evidence, the pattern of Walsh's prejudice, nurtured and ignored by Global Airways. The immediate, unquestioning acceptance of her lie, the violation of Elias's rights, dignity, and livelihood, the cold calculation of the cover-up, the devastating professional and personal toll. He held up Elias's confirmation email for seat 1A. "This," he said, his voice resonating with quiet power, was his contract, a promise of passage, of dignity, of space. Global Airways and Brenda Walsh tore that contract to shreds based on nothing but the color of his skin and his seat they deemed him unworthy to occupy. They didn't just remove a passenger. They attempted to erase his worth. Hold him accountable, not just for Elias Vance, but for every person who has ever been made to feel irregular in their own rightful place. The jury deliberated for less than a day. The tension in the courtroom was a physical presence when they filed back in. Elias sat perfectly still, the years of struggle, the fire of fury, the cold focus of the legal battle culminating in this single moment. Marcus placed a steadying hand on his arm. The foreperson stood. On the count of racial discrimination, we find the defendants, Global Airways and Brenda Walsh, liable. A murmur rippled through the room. On the count of defamation, liable. Walsh flinched. On the count of false imprisonment, liable. The CEO of Global Airways closed his eyes. On the count of intentional infliction of emotional distress, liable. On the count of negligent training and supervision, liable. On the count of breach of contract, liable. Each liable was a hammer blow, shattering the defendant's defenses. Then came the damages. We award compensatory damages in the amount of $2 million. A significant sum covering documented losses, therapy, the Dubai opportunities value. But it was the next figure that drew gasps. And we award punitive damages against Global Airways in the amount of $3 million, and against Brenda Walsh personally in the amount of $1 million. $5 million total. A staggering, headline-making number designed not just to compensate, but to punish and deter. A roar erupted from spectators. Elias felt a wave of profound vindication wash over him. So intense, it was momentarily dizzying. Walsh looked physically ill. Global Airways CEO stared straight ahead, his face a mask of corporate ruin. The gavel fell. It was over. Legally, Elias had won. But the victory felt complex, layered. Global Airways issued a terse statement the next day. Brenda Walsh was terminated immediately. They announced a comprehensive, independent review of training, passenger interaction protocols, and complaint procedures, pledging zero tolerance for discrimination. Industry analysts predicted costly, lasting reputational damage. Walsh vanished from public view, facing personal financial ruin and infamy. For Elias, the money was secondary. The Dubai deal was gone, a casualty he couldn't reclaim. Quantum Horizon's stock recovered, but the scar remained. The true victory was the exposure, the public unmasking of a toxic pattern, the validation of his experience, the precedent set. He established the Quantum Horizon Equity Initiative, a substantial portion of the punitive damages funding it, dedicated to combating systemic discrimination in transportation and corporate spaces, providing legal support and advocacy for victims. He flew again, of course. Business first class. He owned his space. But boarding was never quite the same. He glanced towards seat 1A, a throne he'd rightfully claimed and been violently ejected from. The memory of the rain, the handcuffs, the scrape of his watch, the closing door, they were etched into him. The $5 million was a number on a legal document. The empty seat beside him on every subsequent flight, however, was a constant, silent monument. It wasn't just the physical space Brenda Walsh and Global Airways had stolen that day. It was the unshakable knowledge of the fragility of belonging, the vigilance required, and the enduring echo of a question that victory couldn't fully silence. How many others never get their day in court? The gavel had fallen. Justice had been served, but the sky, for Elias Vance and countless others, would always hold a shadow where the sun should be brightest. The seat might be filled, but the echo of its emptiness remained.